I want to talk to you about the frustrations of weightlifting. Now, I'm going to share with you some of my frustrations that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, frustrations that I encountered as an athlete, and frustrations in the coaching world. I'm sure that you could add to this list, and we all like to moan and complain. I don't want this to be a moan or a complaining blog or video. I want this to be more a case of how we deal with those frustrations. First up, weightlifting is a sport that we really try hard to master, but it's a totally unmasterable sport. It's a sport that requires precise precision, exactly that. It requires you to be moving in a very particular way. And whilst that in theory, in principle, should be fairly straightforward, clearly for any of you that have trained in this sport, it's not. We want to move well, but there are things that affect how we move on a day-to-day basis. It might be something as simple as feeling fatigued. It might be an injury. It might be a little niggle. It might be that you've done a heavy session the day before and your body hasn't fully recovered. It might be that in a certain position you get aches and pains. All of those things are contributing factors. It might be that you've had a tough day in the office and something's playing on your mind, therefore you're not concentrating as well as you could do in a different situation. So whilst we try to master an unmasterable sport, I think it's important that we recognise that we have to be realistic about the situation as well. So what might feel really easy one day in training suddenly feels like an absolute nightmare the next. I'm sure we've all done it. We go to the gym one day and suddenly the weights are flying, everything is clicking, and we're doing absolutely brilliantly. But then the next day, for whatever reason, it just doesn't click again. And those weights that were easy the day before are now almost a limit the following day. That is normal. That is okay to experience that. So it's a frustration. It's something that we will all encounter at some point. But I think it's important to understand that that is normal and it's not a problem. Understand when you're having a good day so you can really appreciate it. But recognise as well when you're having a challenging day, because we need those challenging days to really appreciate the good ones. How many of you have wanted to quit? I could put my hand up honestly and say throughout my career there are times when I've questioned what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, whether I can keep going. And I think that feeling of wanting to quit, those that do quit in my view maybe because the goal, the desire, the focus isn't strong enough. Some people quit because they're lazy. Some people quit because that's what they've always done. What are you? Who are you? Are you the kind of person that when the going gets tough, you just walk away and give up? Or are you the kind of person that looks for a solution to any problem? Now, I stuck around in this sport for the best part of 3 decades and I'm still going now as a coach despite all of my frustrations. And I think that's maybe a testament or credit to the strength of the goals that I set throughout my career. For me, I always wanted to compete at the highest levels. I had dreams of competing at Olympic Games. And for me, it was going from Commonwealth to Olympic cycle to Commonwealth cycle and constantly having something to strive to achieve. Now, don't get me wrong, when I started out, the goals that I had weren't as big as that. They might have just been to hit new personal bests. They might have been to qualify for a particular competition. And regardless of what stage you're at in your competition or lifting career, if you have a goal and that goal is worth achieving, then quitting won't be an option. When the going gets tough, how do you deal with it? One of the big frustrations that I found throughout my career was to do with injuries. Now, if you've never been injured, then I would question whether or not you've ever pushed yourself. Pushing yourself to a point where you get broken is not great. Obviously, we don't want to be in that position. But if you've never pushed yourself, how do you know how far you can go before you break? For me as an athlete, you want to get just to that fine balance just before you or the athletes that you're coaching break, but push yourself so you're stretched significantly. If you get injured, how do you deal with it? I'll talk about that on another occasion and go into the details of how you deal physiologically and psychologically. But think about how you deal with the frustrations of injury, right? That feeling of, oh, I'm injured, I can't train. That's what a lot of people do. They just don't train while they're injured. And they come back in a week, in a month, in 2 or 3 months, however long they might be out for. And then have to go through the whole cycle of building back up and getting back to some kind of fitness. For me as an athlete, I used to use injuries as blessings in disguise to go away and work on and isolate some of these smaller muscle groups that maybe I hadn't normally had time to work on through training. So the frustration of injury for me opened up new opportunities. I tried to look at them in a positive light. The frustrations of training in a gym that is busy and you can't get the equipment you need and you can't get the platform that you want, that can be frustrating. And I think we've all experienced it where we've trained in different facilities and things are not quite right. Maybe the equipment's just rubbish. Maybe it's there's booming music going on and that's not you. I mean, me, I like to train with fairly quiet, chilled out music, to be honest. But I hate going into gyms where the music is blaring and it's headbanging. I don't enjoy that. You go into a gym and it's really dark and they got all these spotlights and that's the new in thing, isn't it? That's the new cool thing. Well, I go into a gym to do a job. I go in there to get the best out of myself. I don't want to be in this atmosphere. Again, it's not for everybody. But on the flip side, some people love that and hate an open gym like this that I prefer. The frustrations of being in a gym when some numpty that's got no gym etiquette just walks straight in front of you as you're about to go for a heavy lift. That can be infuriating as a lifter. Most people, if you're in a weightlifting gym, will understand and respect when you're going for a heavy lift or even just any lift, that they don't walk in front of you. But not everybody gets that. The frustrations of having to wait for a set of squat stands or wait for the bar that you want or wait for equipment, that can be really, really frustrating. But it's how you deal with it that then determines how good or how bad your session is going to be. One more thing that has, I guess, been around throughout my entire career when it comes to frustrations are the frustrations of politics. Now, if you are maybe on a slightly lower level and you're just rocking up to comps and you go into your local gym and training, then hopefully you'll never experience this. There's always even politics within gyms, I guess, from gym owner through the ranks of the staff down to the athlete and the people that train in the gym. But for me, I have felt the frustrations of going through a governing body which at times has been awfully run by people that really couldn't care less about weightlifters and the people they're supposed to be there supporting, but have their own agendas and their own power trips. For me, that has been probably one of the biggest frustrations, and especially coming as a female in a male-dominated sport, trying to break down those barriers and to actually stand up and say, no, hang on, we deserve to be treated better than this. I think for me, that is probably one of my biggest frustrations and one that I still carry. I think I still have frustrations with how things are run from higher up, and that's one of the reasons why I've stepped away from that. It's not great, I don't think, to be moaning and complaining all the time about issues that are going on, which, to be fair, are out of my control and out of a lot of people's control. So rather than get frustrated with it, what I've tried to do is say, okay, I'm going to remove myself from those situations and I'm going to do my own thing. And that way I can carry on day to day, be happy in what I'm doing, really enjoy what I'm doing, and be the best that I can be at coaching and supporting those that I train with. So in summary, think about the frustrations that you have with this sport. Is it the frustration of trying to master the unmasterable? Is it the frustrations of getting to a gym and being able to find the time to put the training in? Is it the frustrations of training in an environment that you don't like or with people that you don't like? What are your frustrations? List them on a piece of paper or just have a minute of quiet reflection where you think about that. But then try and take each frustration and turn it into a positive so that you can deal with it and so that it doesn't affect you in a negative way.